have you ever experienced racism be passed off as banter?
Right, yeah, so like in my family I'm actually adopted, and I'm on more of my white side, and growing up some of my older brothers, they would say things like, this might be a bit controversial, but like he would say, oh, you're right, black boys, or things like that, and there was a lot of love behind what he said, but growing up I didn't really I just took it as banter, whereas now in some ways I still feel like maybe I should speak up a little bit about it, because he doesn't really say that to me anymore, but we never really had a conversation about it. But if it did, I probably would be like a bit more like, I don't know if that seems like appropriate even back then anymore, but it's one of those things where it feels like I kind of just went along with it, and I think it kind of goes back to similar what we were talking about with the kids, of not really having that conversation and not really being educated myself from a young age. So I think it would have been nice for, more information to be given to me at a younger age than where I am now, just because, I don't know, I feel like people should be learn more. To this day, it doesn't hurt me at all, because I think the love was there behind it and the banter was there. But when I sit that back and I think about it, it kind of feeds into that narrative of me just having to kind of put up with those sort of comments.
Reflecting back now as an adult and understanding a bit more of self.
Because overall it kind of has that overarching impact of me being different, or almost me not being good enough, or like why do I have to stick out? Do you know what I mean? Things like that. Maybe perhaps for like the negative labels attached to it, it doesn't seem super positive when it's. Do you know what I mean? So it's just a mixed bag of when it comes to like banter and comments.
It is difficult. I mean, and I'll hold my hands up, and I think it probably stems from that simple fact of growing up in an environment where everybody else is, different than me, and just that, I suppose you get an inbuilt. You grow an inbuilt sort of, if you like, disregard that really shouldn't be there, if you like. Just simply because you've had to withstand that for so many years, and actually, you've been in that environment where it's just been normalised to the point of where now you're accepting of it. Even now, sometimes like I say, sometimes when I think about it, when I was listening to you then as well, Tabitha, it is a little bit shaming for myself. I'll sometimes, let that pass, or I won't challenge it, because, even though it might not necessarily now affect me, I used to say it's not going to go on and affect somebody else if they're not given that knowledge. And I think it's maybe just being a little bit considerate of that. And I'll say it now, I'll probably still go on and give a pass again in the future, but I think it's probably, and it is important, it is important for, to build that courage to actually challenge that when it does come up.
It is really even better for talking about mental health. The question is, do we live it? Do we just let it pass for our mental health purposes?
Self-preservation.
Or do you just keep stressing yourself every time it happens? So it's a thin line.
There's also the reaction as well of the person. Like I've had it where someone's been singing like a rap song or an R&B song and said the N-word. I mean, I've said that countless times, but as an adult, and now I've grown more confident to say, oh, can you not just say that? It's never like a, wagging the finger at somebody, but it's just to say that makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like, and they'll be like, oh, well, I've had someone not mind it before, and then it turns into a back and forth. I've even had people like in floods of tears before, and for me, I feel like in that situation it shouldn't be taken there of like, oh, I'm so sorry, like I never meant to. And I get where that person's coming from, but for me, I just want to have it very simple, like, could you not say that respectfully? No. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. And sometimes I've let things pass to avoid that reaction because I just don't want it.
I feel like it then becomes like I'm being affected, but now I'm having to hold that space for them. and again, it feels like it's like continues the cycle a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of perpetuates racism, I think, because the person's then going, oh, I can't cope with the fact that this is your experience and it's different from mine, and now I'm going to be defensive. I don't want to have to deal with the fact that I've probably insulted loads of people loads of times, but actually no, I'm just going to cry and you can calm me.
You show me that I'm not a bad person.
Yes.
You're probably not. It's just,
that's
it's just
it.
not having the information, and it's okay. It's like a generational thing that's been happening for years, and there are slight differences, and I feel like it's okay to have a conversation about it and just not be this painful, awful thing of like you're a bad person, because you're not. It's just it's
You've
just
never been checked for.
Exactly.
I don't know. Conversation.
And I think that's part of the problem, that we see racism as being this horrific thing, and people have connotations of like, you know, certain political groups and things like that, and scenes from the 80s. But actually it can be somebody doing something like that, and just say it's not a dirty word, it's just that you're not educated in why that's offensive, and we should have an open discussion about it rather than going, oh God, now I'm a racist and I'm one of those bad people. No, you've
like
said
things moved on. You said that, didn't you? That, you know, the older generation tend to stick in the rut and they don't sort of move with the times and the terminology. You know, I've been part of a black family for 30 odd years, lots of nieces and nephews, and you know, to say half caste back in the day, that was totally acceptable, but now with my own children that's not acceptable. But the older generation tend to are stuck in that and then look at you, so why is it, should I have not have said that?
I think whilst a lot of terminology has evolved, people still have that fear of the word racism or racist.
It's worse than actually the act.
It is
worse than the act.
Absolutely. And I think that word is what people fear of being labelled as, when it's not that, you know. That's not what you say. Well, I mean, that's from what I take from what you're saying. That's not what he's just trying to change that subtle way that people might speak. And
like I say, I had that with friends that I went to school with, where we've had those conversations now. I don't think back then, when they were 14, 15 years old, going like my N-word, or I think, you know, like called nignog was like a word that was used. Again, I didn't like it at the time. It was something I accepted to be accepted, but now they are not racist people, and we've had those conversations. They've been like, oh, actually, I'm so sorry I hurt you, like I can't believe I said that. A little bit of shame, but you know, that's not something that stays with them, because they know that they've learned, educated themselves and healed and moved on.
And that's the difference, isn't it? That's a big difference.
My friend, actually, and he's my best friend, we've been best friends for a very, very long time, but I always remember a particular point where he said something to me and my brother, and he didn't mean anything by it, and he must have been 4 or 5 maybe, and if I've ever mentioned it again now, the embarrassment and the sort of denial that he has against it is just like, because he's just in no way that type of person. So to have said that is obviously just something that he's heard or and just used off the cuff. Now he's just like, no, that did not happen. No, it's like, and you can see the sort of dread in his face when I've said it to him before. But I think this is it, isn't it? I think it's just that. You know, lack of and exactly what you said before about obviously the friends and things like that. You know, some people as well will just try to find as many things as they possibly can to try and hurt you in that moment, but are not necessarily, you know, looking to, you know, cause you some continued pain or distress. You know, it's I suppose in a sense, in a way, it's a little bit of human nature. We do that, you know, from a young age. We get in arguments, with fights or whatever, anything we can use in that moment as a defence mechanism, you know.
But I still think that people need to be educated on like the history of them words, because it's not the same as maybe insulting different characteristics, because there's not a long history of what them words mean, and then words mean really ugly things, and that black people are inferior. So I still think that there needs to be education around that, and I think, as we were saying before about kind of being terrified of appearing racist, I think that is a real problem, because it stops people from looking inward and thinking we do live in a racist society, and that is a really sad fact, and there is probably things that we've picked up and unconscious biases because of that, and we need to look inside of us and figure out what is racist and to question that rather than going, no, I'm not, because then that's just denial, and it just.
I think separating from like saying you are a racist, saying this thing that you've done or this word that you've said is racist. It's not you. It doesn't encompass who you are. It's just that this, and it can be corrected.
Chosen the wrong word.
And it's I feel like with banter, usually that's kind of like something to like where people are trying to develop a relationship, and like again, there's usually a lot of love involved, and it can be a bit cheeky here and there, but sometimes. It's like, even with me, with my other friends who are from other races, if I've ever had banter or felt like I was going to say something, you know, a bit, I'm not sure about that, then I would just ask. I would just be like, was that alright for me to say? Or, I'm not sure, is this the way that you would, you know, be actually interested in the culture? And because that's what the goal is at the end of the day, is to actually connect with someone, not to pull someone down. So I think to end up being defensive or being like, oh god, and focusing on the wrong is almost kind of like counterproductive in my opinion. And it would be better, again in my opinion, to kind of just ask questions.
Openness.
I think as well, correct me if I'm wrong, and if this is inappropriate, let me know, but I don't think the responsibility is just for black people to change it. I think it's the responsibility is also for white people if they come across it to put it in check.
Everyone's responsibility.
I think so. Yeah,
I have that with my cousins are ethnically, biologically, however you want to say it, the same as me. They just happen to be white passing, and when they've been around people that have said like racist things, whether that be banter or serious, that person has felt safe in my cousin's presence to say that to them, and that's when they've had the opportunity to check them. Because it's like when they're not going to say it necessarily directly to a black person, to an Asian person, whatever the demographic might be.
There's also this misconception that a black person can use like a racist, like the N-word to a fellow black person, and that will not be racist. Racism is more of banter. But if a white person should use that word, that means that it's racism. So there's this misconception about the context. Is it banter? If it's the same race, can we use those words? But if it's a different race, then
I think everyone feels comfortable in different. Like for me, I don't use the N-word because it makes me feel comfortable because of people calling me the N-word who shouldn't have. But I know that people that have grown up with black friends, and especially in really black neighbourhoods, or like in America especially, it is a word that they use, and if you're comfortable, you're comfortable. But I suppose it's about asking the question, like what you said, Zainab. Are you comfortable?
I think it's just in a relationship, it's communication really. So it's how you're comfortable communicating, because black, white, green, purple, it's how you come across. If I feel that the words you're using with me is hurting me, whatever, even if it's not racist or whatever, I should be able to say no, I don't like those words, whether or not it's a racist word or whatever. It's the words that are racist. You're very right. It doesn't matter whether it's between me and you, or me and a white person, or it's the words. So it's a general thing. If we use it, if I could say to somebody else, really, you have a big nose, it's hurtful. So for somebody, you might just laugh and say, oh no, I don't. So it's just communication in a relationship, really. Everybody has the way they translate how things come across to them. So the most important thing really is that education. Knowing that this thing is the words, that racist is the words, not the persons, involved or who they are. It's not like saying you're a racist person. I think that's when the defense comes. When people feel as if that word is being used to define a human being rather than the words themselves.
I guess that defensiveness can even manifest, even if you don't say, that's racist what you've said, even if there's a hint of, you being uncomfortable with what's being said, defences can come up straight away, and that fragility of not, you know, like you're saying, being open and reflective and looking and thinking, you know, what have I internalised growing up in this type of society over the years and what is not appropriate. But I think that's kind of encouraged by the media, you know, like whenever there's celebrities or important people saying things that is offensive, it's just banter, and that reinforces it. And you know, if you don't have any people of colour in your life, you might think, well, that is acceptable because the media says it's acceptable to use that as banter. And you know, there's that disconnect in society for some people that don't have any diverse friends or families, maybe even colleagues, you know.
The media really should really help in trying to educate people. I don't think they're doing enough, to be honest. Schools are not doing enough, to be honest. These words, people need to understand that this is what these words mean. Like you said, the history behind them, what they are, you know, and that they're capable of hurting people.
I just want to add as well, I think it's like an individual thing as well, because like we said before, like if someone says, oh, my friend wasn't really bothered by this, X, Y, Z, I think everyone's on their own individual journey as well. And like I said before, like my self-awareness growing up has, you know, heightened. So back then, if someone said something to me which I now find inappropriate, I might give you a mixed message. I might be telling another person, oh, that's acceptable. I might be encouraging them unwillingly knowing. And so I think it is a difficult thing to it is a sensitive subject. So if one day you might say something that's indifferent to one person, it'll be a different experience with the next person. So it's not just, I'm just going to get it right and that's it for the rest of my life. It's one of those things that it could come back up constantly, and it's something that everyone's working on. It's not just the person who says something that might be inappropriate. It's also me kind of being brave enough to challenge this time, or me trying to conserve my energy not to say anything. So it's always ongoing.
Yeah, I had an experience on holiday recently, and the lady that owned the lodge came to visit us. It was a bit weird. My partner's white, and he was like doing the barbecue and went round and introduced himself, and then I came round. She went, oh, you're pretty, where are you from? And I was like, Yorkshire. And she was like, where's your family from? I'm like,
right,
Yorkshire. Where are they all from though? And I just went everywhere, and I could see the look of disappointment on her face because she wanted me to say, and I just went everywhere.
If someone just straight up said, what's your heritage though? I'd happily say that. But I'm from Barnsley.
Exactly. My mum and dad are from Huddersfield. I'm from Huddersfield. Like, I could go back quite far.
I suppose it's them knowing how to ask that question, because the amount of times I'm sure you would have been asked where you're from.
Yeah.
And had to go around that merry-go-round. But if people just knew, say, what's your heritage?
Exactly.
And know that that's like
it's gotta be
just
annoying.
like a normal way to say things. It is annoying. I get it less.
It is annoying.
Yeah, no. Because white people don't get it. You know, I never get asked, oh, where are you from?
Look Irish.
You know what I mean? It must be so annoying.
Yeah. I've had people think I was white as well and gone, oh, where have you been on holiday? Your tan's gorgeous. And I was like, I just made stuff up. I'm like, Brazil. I've been there for 2 months. Just can't be bothered.
Oh dear. Yeah, that tan thing. Funnily, when I took my son to school recently, we went past a tanning shop, and he said, what's that, Mum? What do they do in there? So I said, it's where people go in to change the colour of their skin. He said, people who changes the colour of his skin? I said, no, you know, like when you go into the sun, and when white people go into the sun and they get a bit brown. So I said, people pay. You mean, Mum, that people pay to get my skin colour? I said, yes. You've got a lovely skin. I even admire it. And sometimes I said to him, you know, everybody wants what they don't have.
Yeah, because there's whitening creams as well, isn't there?
Yeah. So it's like when you've got the black skin, you want to put in some whitening cream, and when you've got the white skin, you want a tan.